Good morning, dear Rava, and any stowaways on this, our journey to the heart of theatre. I wanted today to consider the once thought to be important port of call of Bert Brecht and his work. These days, out there on our schooner in the South Seas of theatre as we are, I say, look, there, can you see the post, the pillars? Look a bit dilapidated, the old house. And the outpost, the regular stopping point to take on and discharge passengers at Brecht port, now looks, my God, strangely abandoned. So, why was it ever a busy point of repair? I will tell you. Bert Brecht, born in northern Germany before the First War, I take it. I probably ought to check that, but I think I must be roughly right. Began life as a rebel, a shit-kicking, aggressive poet and playwright who created a briefly celebrated anti-hero called Baal, who insults everybody and winds up dead drunk, or dead at any rate, in a ditch. The kind of thing that seemed appropriate at the time, in the 20s and 30s, when spirits of substance and rebellion were sick of what they saw when they look around them, as the rich got richer and the poor poorer. And eventually this went in one of two directions, as we learn from Herr Goebbels, Hitler's Minister of Communications and Propaganda, who in the early days when he was not yet a Nazi, flipped a coin one night as to which meeting he would go to, the two big meetings of the night, the Communists and the National Socialists. Which would he go to? Well, it came up National Socialism. And so he, the little powerhouse that he was, put all his efforts into ensuring the success of the Nazi project as opposed to the Communist project. But those at that point were the alternatives. And Brecht moved really from a position in the anarchist, I suppose, extreme left, or maybe it's on no place in the spectrum, from virulent anarchism to an organized left-wing communist mindset, or at least Marxist mindset, and began his career as a playwright, which took him around the world, indeed took him to America, a long period in which he became celebrated by writing plays which were not revolutionary, although their message, if you distilled it, had radical implications, but were accompanied by a body of theory which was revolutionary, but was rarely put into action, and to which his plays themselves were rarely treated. But the premise of the theory is the most exciting part, I think, of Brecht's work. And it is that the traditional forms of theatre as prescribed by Aristotle, and the purgation of the emotions that drama, tragedy in particular, was supposed to elicit, was effectively a kind of capitalist toilet. It was a way of maintaining the status quo by purging. The citizenry purged itself of its terrors, of its fears in the theatre, and went home pretty happy that they were at home in Athens or Rome or Berlin or New York or wherever they were. And Brecht's point of view as a revolutionary, which in a sense he had always been and was a left-wing revolutionary now, Brecht's view was that the mission of theatre, of art, of human existence, was to overturn the complacent class domination in which we lived. And this would never happen if we had a theatre that fascinated and enthralled an audience that it made weep and laugh and leave the theatre thinking, wow, phew, so nice to go out and back to our car, which, if we're lucky, has not been pillaged by the hordes. Instead of a play which should be saying, oh my God, we better get out right away and see if our car's still there, and do something about it, and join the Revolutionary Party, because this won't do. This life as we have it will not do. So in order to help this project along, a project which was not all that clearly manifested in his plays were in fact very good bourgeois traditional vehicles in many ways, although depending on which play you're talking about, it was possible to distill from that a revolutionary message. Nonetheless, they were a rattling good evening in the theatres. Brecht was a canny writer. And what was, as I say, distinctive about Brecht in his heyday, the 50s and 60s, perhaps even the 70s, was the body of theory that he composed. And what it prescribed was a method of rehearsal, of acting, which would promote revolutionary ideas. And it was very simple and very brilliant. Now, acting has always been a bifurcated activity. On the one hand, actors who said, you don't have to imagine that you're actually the grandmother in this play, you just have to say the lines. And the other side saying, you'll never say the lines properly unless you truly immerse yourself in being the grandmother. So into this forever conversation, we've been batted back and forth over the centuries, came Brecht, very firmly down on the you don't have to imagine you're the grandmother side. So he would offer various examples, various exercises, one of which is known as the Straßenszene, the street scene. And in the street scene, an old woman has just been knocked down in the street, and somebody who saw the event, I don't know, a young man even, or an old man, who saw the event, is being consulted by police who say, so what happened? Anyone see this? Anyone see this? And the old man comes forward and says, I saw it. And they say to him, so how did it happen? Now, he says, happened like this. And then he does not impersonate the old woman in the sense that in order to tell the story to the police, he has to become the old woman or think he is. He simply has to offer enough old womanishness of her walk as she stepped out into the street at the wrong moment to convey old womanness. And the point of his account is the story, not the old womanness of the performer. The point is the story. And in this sense, he is at one with Aristotle, putting story before character. So he said it happened like this. The car came very fast round that corner just as the old woman, and now he's acting it out, stepped out waving her stick, hoping that it was a taxi, and instead it was this car, and it knocked her flat. So by this time, he's acted out the part of the grandmother without ever having to suppose he is a grandmother. So Brecht said, we care about the story, we care about the action, don't give us the psychology, we just need to be told what happened. And similarly with decor, he detested the idea of the infinitely realistic decor that it was possible to make for plays in the 20th century, and he said, bugger all that, just have a man come on with a sign that says China. That's all you need, then you're in China. And this again is quite ancient. It's certainly true in the Athenian theatre when scene changes take place, which are not all that common, but they do. They're simply announced by statements, just as in Shakespeare, they're announced by, so this is the forest of Arden. And it's not because we see that it's something resembling a forest of any kind. We are told where we are, and then the people can get on with it. And these are, as always described in terms of Shakespeare's theatre, people scenes rather than place scenes. So Brecht takes this up in his what he calls his epic theatre, which had lists of categories which were contrary to the traditional or bourgeois theatre, and prescribed a rehearsal method in which the alienation effect, the effect, was brought into action to ensure that the audience did not rush to identify with the characters in a Hollywood movie way and cry at their distresses. On the contrary, they could laugh at their distresses, but they should be distanced from alienation effect, distanced from the people, the characters as characters, but not from the action. They should learn from the action, because the requirement of theatre was basically that they, the audience, should be sent out to act, to act out the needs of society, revolution, contrary to the conditions of class domination and race and gender domination. So you can see those elements addressed in Brecht's plays. Galileo, The Life of Galileo, is a wonderful play which is about the hiding of knowledge, the sequestration of knowledge from the people, very important moment as Brecht portrays it in the history of science, separated off, given to certain people. But in fact, the play itself was a huge vehicle for a great actor called Charles Laughton on stage, and it provides a wonderful role, and that's what theatre managers care about. Likewise with Mother Courage, a wonderful play about the vicissitudes of war, but the roles are really juicy, and they're not roles that engender much. Many tears are not spilled over Brecht's characters, and perhaps that's why he's receded into the shadows as a cultural figure. But they are big, juicy roles, and some of the plays will always come back because of that, or because they're witty plays, like The Good Person of Setsuan, a wonderful play in which a good person finds that she's overwhelmed by exploitative people, and so she goes away for the weekend and comes back as her hitherto unknown cousin, who is a ruthless individual and kicks them all out. A clear indication on an utterly non-political level of the difficulty of survival in human society, but seen in a political light, it makes it quite clear that unless we do something radical, we can't always go away for the weekend and bring back our evil cousin. And the play is submitted to a deus ex machina descent of three gods to pass justice, to pass judgment on the whole thing, and they just shrug their shoulders and get lifted back up into the skies. And it's clear that because the human predicament is such that nothing but revolution will do, or at least we could well afford to draw that conclusion. Brecht used to play chess a lot with his great friend Benjamin, the celebrated Marxist critic and thinker, and they created, or claimed to have created, a form of chess in which if a piece stays too long on one square, it changes its nature. And this seems to me the most wonderful idea, Marxist chess. So a lot is implicit in Brecht. A lot is oddly at odds with its own mission, and very much at home with bourgeois theatre, the bourgeois theatre that Brecht was impatient with, and so it's hampered these days, of course, on two fronts. One is that nobody cares about Marxism anymore, though maybe that's coming back into intellectual fashion. So that side of his work has withered on the vine, and the glorious the presence of glorious roles which should ensure the survival of a repertoire of plays, and maybe it will yet, but it's lost its fashionable gloss. That's why when we call in at the port of Bert Brechtville. And there doesn't seem to be anybody very much around, and nobody's cleaned the windows, and the shutters are tatty, and we think, oh dear, what happened here? So Brecht, who was a great figure as I grew up, is an outlier now, and maybe his day will return, because his theatre his theory is entrancing, if possibly impractical, and his theatre caught sandwiched beautifully between revolutionary intent and surrender to the gods of theatre that demand that we have characters that we care about. Sorry, Bert. That's why we're in the theatre here. We're not here to be lectured. Sorry. The conflict within Bert Brecht with regard to this is perhaps, was certainly fertile in his lifetime, and maybe it will be again. I hope you don't have too much conflict in your life this weekend, which, from where I am in an extremely cold 20-degree wild forest of Mount Overlook, is frigid, but is promising at the weekend to get into warmer temperatures, I hope. Likewise for you, those of you in the northern hemisphere of America. For rather, this is not really an issue, dear. You've got the right temperature already. Take care all. Bye now.